I try to be very empathetic as a human being, and it's hard for me to put my mind in the brain space of people who would post here like this. Like on the Edward Snowden replies, because you think Edward Snowden is like based Giga Chad because he whistle blew about the NSA spying on Americans, and then you vote for Donald Trump, who is like literally black bagging protesters during the BLM protests when he was president, and also beefing up the security state vis-a-vis the border and a variety of other ways that they try to stamp down on free speech and public expression. So like you thought Edward Snowden was like a based Giga Chad because he did a good thing and whistle blew about like big government NSA overreach and spying, and then you vote for the people that are complicit in the government overreach and the control of your life. You know? It's tough, man. Oh, brother. I wonder what the replies to this post are gonna be like, considering the people that pretend to care about free speech and therefore suck Snowden's dick all the time. Even though Snowden's like politics are like pretty up in the air, it's still obviously like his whistleblowing was like pivotal for American society. It was very important. The DNC is the only reason you're not currently enjoying a second-term Sanders and a sane Supreme Court. So the big problem with this is that Edward Snowden, like Julian Assange, is glazed by a whole bunch of Republicans, conservatives, etc. Obviously, Julian Assange is more because Julian Assange does have a political ideology that he put forward when he selectively, through WikiLeaks, released shit on Hillary Clinton during the 2016 election, and didn't on Donald Trump, even though he had at WikiLeaks information on Donald Trump. Elected not to release that, which seems to suggest he would prefer to have Donald Trump in office. Or at the very least did not want Hillary Clinton in office, and neither did I, but it was better than Trump. And I think Snowden gets a similar kind of reputation from right-wingers. That said, I feel like Edward Snowden's had some weird politics in the past. I don't really remember as much, because he's not talked about as often as like Assange is, mostly because Assange is more of a political operative. Obviously, any whistleblowing that happens because of Julian Assange or WikiLeaks is good, but it should be objective, and in 2016 it clearly wasn't. Anyway, so let's see what's going on here. Let's see what these comments are like. For Edward Snowden, I almost say posthumously endorsing Bernie Sanders. It's not that the man died, but rather his prospects of ever becoming president have been, unless they do the yoinky sploinky and replace Biden with him and Kamala Harris, which is unlikely. I don't think Bernie's going to be in the top or VP spot, unfortunately, if Biden does get replaced. Well, let's see. I think he may have spent a little too much time in Russia, but blue check, 363 followers, veteran, patriot, American. See what I mean? It's wild to me that a guy who on the run from a tyrannical government would support a guy who wants government to have even more power. From Good Morning Liberty, another blue check. Oh, brother. You of all people should want the government to have less power. Bernie's a socialist. That's the exact opposite of less government power. Are you mentally unwell? So this is the big problem with Republicans and conservatives. It makes a lot of sense for Republicans in a position of power, be it elected representatives or punditry, to have takes like this, to be like, oh, well, we want the government to have less power. Because what they mean by that is that they want the government to regulate multinational corporations less. They want the government to tax multinational corporations and mega wealthy people less. That makes sense to me from like if you're an elected Republican, if you're a political pundit, like you're gonna get kickbacks for putting in place legislation that cuts taxes for the wealthy and deregulates their industry. So that, you know, they can make your mom work for longer hours, for less pay, for worse working conditions, and no benefits until she fucking dies, you know? That makes sense for their perspective. But when it comes to dumbass voters of the Republican Party, obviously a lot of them have been led astray and the wool has been pulled over their eyes by the Republican Party that has consistently propagandized to them a variety of things that are untrue and very easily falsifiable, but spooky enough and, you know, enough red meat on the bone for right-wingers to just completely ignore the fact that they're getting absolutely fucked up the ass by multinational corporations and the mega wealthy, of which they will never be a part of that group, and vote against their best interests. Obviously, that's the case. I can understand that from, like, a dumbass voter's perspective. Like, oh, yeah, you vote Donald Trump because you think he's going to cut your taxes, even though you make, like, $45,000 a year. When the taxes that are being cut are for people who are making, like, 250 plus K a year, and you're probably not going to get there by the time that you die. So for them, like, if you're just a dumbass voter, I understand that, too. Because, like, you're just a stupid-ass voter. Democracy requires an educated voter base to function at its highest and best capacity. But the problem is, as one official from a government that I don't remember the name of once said, but the people are dumb, you know? So it's a bit more difficult there. And then, obviously, the Republican Party consistently defunds public schooling and fights against the education of people anyway, because they know that the higher education you have, you tend to vote Democrat, and they don't want that. It's also harder to trick people that are smarter. Anyway. So, but, like, then you get to the people that post on Twitter about it for free. That is what I cannot understand. Because at that point, like, your level of mental illness is already, like, it's a late-stage case, man. Like, you're already teetering on the edge. Like, the call of the void has been speaking to you, and you've been offering it a hand job. Like, you're on the precipice of absolute destruction when it comes to, like, your mental acumen. So it makes me wonder, like, how does this happen? Of course, assuming that these are real accounts. You never know on Twitter anymore, or a variety of other social media platforms for that matter. Bots are taking over, especially if you can, you know, buy a blue check and make scrape a couple pennies off of Elon Musk's shoe for posting stupid ass bullshit that like 5 people see. I don't know. I try to be very empathetic as a human being, and it's hard for me to put my mind in the brain space of people who would post here like this, you know? Like on the Edward Snowden replies, because you think Edward Snowden is like based Giga Chad because he whistle blew about the NSA spying on Americans, and then you vote for Donald Trump, who is like literally black bagging protesters during the BLM protests when he was president, and also beefing up the fucking security state vis-a-vis the border and a variety of other ways that they try to stamp down on free speech and public expression, you know? So like you thought Edward Snowden was like a based Giga Chad because he did a good thing and whistle blew about like big government, NSA overreach and spying. And then you vote for the people that are complicit in the government overreach and the control of your life. You know? Obviously, the Democrats are not much better when it comes to that front. But, like, they're certainly a bit better about, at the very least, democracy in the workplace nowadays. Like, for the fact that he's literally dead and is being puppeteered around. Joe Biden's NLRB, his National Labor Relations Board, has been actually pretty good about like making sure people can unionize and get together with their coworkers and like bargain for better working conditions, better wages, in spite of the authoritarian arrangement that is working for a privately owned firm in the United States of America, you know? That's pretty good, at the very least. Now, of course, people who don't like that Snowden is in this way endorsing Bernie Sanders also don't like unions because they're fucking stupid. And the propaganda has set in, probably in utero. Like, it probably traveled down through the umbilical cord along with the alcohol that their mother was drinking. Or should I say birthing person was drinking at the same time that they were, you know, in the womb. It's like, it's tough, man. It's a difficult spot to be if you're like a person who values humanity and wants humans to like be the best they can be for themselves and their fellow man. To have to grapple with this shit. And then the fucking absolute shit heap that is the Democratic Party. Like, at least the shit pile that is the Democratic Party has like some kernels of corn in it that haven't been fully digested. So like there's a little bit more there. Whereas, like, the Republican Party is literally, like, it's like your septic tank that hasn't been addressed in, like, 35 years. And suddenly it bursts out through all of your taps or whatever, you know? It's like, goddamn, dude. That's a bit more in my face at that point. Oh, man. Unless you don't have to deal with British labor? Yeah, well, at least you had, like, a facsimile of a left-wing party at some point in your contemporary history, Iliander, you son of a bitch. We haven't even had anything close to that since fucking FDR. Fuck you. You don't know how good you have it. Now, of course, it's absolute garbage now. So, like, you don't know, you don't know what you got till it's gone. At least the NHS is, like, moderately better than privatized healthcare. At least it was, until conservatives continued to destroy it. You know, we didn't even have that. We didn't even get to know how good it could be. Labor also wants to go. Yeah, well, the UK is a dead country. It's not real. It's a fairy tale land, and it's going through its like emo phase. It's like medieval gothic horror phase. It's in the end times. much like the United States of America. But I think the US is a bit more resilient. I'm almost 40 and I have never had a left-wing government. Listen, you get what I'm talking about, okay? I need people from the UK to understand. We are not the same. You're not like us, okay? We escaped you, for one. For two, the NHS is like actual dog shit compared to what it should be. And it's still better than what people in the US have to deal with. Like, sure, like, you might have long wait times that are, like, on the books wait times because your doctor's like, yeah, oh, you have, like, simultaneous salmonella and campylobacter and you need antibiotics. Well, you know, you're going to have to come here, like, maybe 4 weeks from now. Just stay toilet bound for, like, a couple of weeks and then we'll maybe be able to see you to get you those antibiotics. Whereas in the United States of America, it's like the wait time for us is I can't afford to go to the doctor. I can't afford health insurance. So, like, I'm gonna wait essentially forever unless I get lucky and, like, am able to get enough money someday to maybe get these things addressed that could have been addressed, like, ages ago. And the preventative medicine could have maybe made my life a lot better in the long term. Or you just never go until it's too late. And then at that point, you don't even want an ambulance to come pick you up. Fucking probably want to get, like, you'd probably want to call, like, a delivery driver to be like, yo, here's a couple dollars. Can you bring me to the hospital? I'm fucking dying over here. I can't afford emergency services to come to my house and pick me up. Anyway. Did you have Medicare and Medicaid if you can't afford it? Yeah, but it's not as good as it could be. Spent over a half an hour today trying to figure out which combo of companies are willing to interact regarding dental care. Hell yeah. Listen, those are luxury bones, okay? You don't need teeth to live, evidently. Even though, like, one of the main things that you use them for is mastication so that you can eat food, calories in, calories out, so that you can, like, have enough energy to work for a mega wealthy CEO that doesn't even know that you're an actual living human being and just looks at you like a number on a spreadsheet so that he can scrape a whole bunch of dollars off of your paycheck that the only reason he's getting it is because the fact that you're there using your labor to do the thing. And, like, if you don't have good teeth, which leads to a variety of other negative externalities when it comes to your health, not related to your ability to eat, you're going to be a worse worker and less efficient and therefore not as good for the bottom line of the CEO. But that doesn't matter because they'll just get another guy. The cool thing about seeing humans as a resource is that they're constantly making new versions, you know? And once, like, the old ones are gone, you can just, like, burn them up into ash. Maybe use them for biofuel. Anyway, it is true, but I mean, there's not much to do about looking back and being like, oh my god, we could have had Bernie Sanders. Because, like, yeah, probably. But that's not the world we're living in right now. The only thing you could do at that point is, like, look at the mistakes of the past. And the mistakes of the past there's probably a variety of mistakes the Sanders campaign made. The majority of the mistakes that were made by the DNC and the Democrats in ways that people who wouldn't want those mistakes to happen probably wouldn't have the power to do anything about. So, like, it seems like if we go back and try to think about how we can prevent this from happening again, it would require a whole bunch of people that think like you and I to try to get into positions of power within the DNC and maybe be able to move some levers around. And that's a difficult task, considering the perverse incentive of being a corporate shill that entails being a politician in America, and the fact that you're essentially nerfed if you try to be anti-corporate as a politician in America. It's tough, man. But, I mean, it's got to be done. Somebody's got to try. Anyway, back to this. Oh, brother. So this is not a right-winger? Or I should say, they're probably a right-winger, but they affect, like, left-wing aesthetics. Action for Assange. See what I said? See what I told you? Birds of a feather, man. This completely ignores the reality that Bernie was always controlled. He's a feckless coward, and even if they had allowed him to win, he would have just done what he was told. You're describing the American presidency. But, like, you're literally talking about American presidents. Like, you could have Karl Marx run for president in the modern day and become president, and because, at least at the time, maybe not now, the United States president isn't like a dictator, you're gonna have to capitulate to a variety of interests outside of your own brain, outside of your own skull, and that will involve a whole bunch of infrastructure that was built before you were even born around, like, benefiting a variety of industries, like the military-industrial complex, like the automobile industry, like the power sector. There's only so much you could do as the president of the United States. You need the Congress as well, and even then, shit moves slowly because that's what democracy typically entails, is slow movement, because you need to get a whole bunch of different people's voices heard. So, like, Bernie Sanders, if he became president in 2016, would likely be a war criminal, you know? Much to his own chagrin. Under his watch, it's likely that there were already a bunch of pieces moving that would have led to some bullshit that you wouldn't want him to be affiliated with. That would have happened anyway, regardless of the head that was in the Oval Office at the time. Because that's what the American presidency is. And even then, like, for a variety of things that he could do by executive order, it's like, only so much can be done. Now, I do think that he'd be a lot better about it. I think that he'd be a lot more aggressive when it came to, like, using executive powers, and maybe even the bully pulpit to try to get Congress people that hate his guts to maybe make some shit happen for the people. But, like, even then, like, you would have to grapple with the fact that there's a lot of people in the DNC that would rather have Trump win than Bernie Sanders win. There's a whole bunch of Democrats elected in office in Congress that would rather work with Republicans to spite a left-wing government in Bernie Sanders. Because Democrats don't care about winning, they never have, at least not since FDR. Not since, you know, term limits had to be invented to stop a Democrat president from running and winning over and over. Because he was just that popular, because he did, like, a mild amount of social spending and made people's lives better. You know? But, like, this is the big problem. And I don't know, I'm not in this person's head, frankly. They would not be able to handle my brain in their brain. But that's the case for most people. People that usually talk like this, you know the types, like the people that pretend to be on the left, who like first got interested in politics because of Bernie Sanders' 2016 run for the presidency, and then after that are like, General Strike now! AOC and Ilhan Omar controlled opposition because they didn't immediately enact socialism, or whatever. Or they didn't go along with my pet project or come on my podcast, and because of that, they're counter-revolutionary. And they're like, oh my god, well, who cares about the president? If it's Trump or Biden, it'll be the same either way. Because they're both controlled. You know, you can't worry about a single person in the presidency. Meanwhile, they'll advocate to, like, vote third party. And also, like, never talk about voting in local and state elections. And also, we're only activated to politics because of Bernie's 2016 run. And as soon as he lost, the fucking great man that they had hoped would fix everything was no longer in a position to do so. And now, you know, this is what they are. It's like, all the things that you're talking about. Like, that's what you came from, man. Like, you literally, that's how you started. The people who are like, oh, no, you can't vote for Biden, even though he's marginally better than Trump, because, you know, it doesn't matter who wins or whatever. That's why you gotta vote for, like, Jill Stein, you know, or the Green Party that gets, like, less than 1% of the vote nationally on a good day. It's not good, man. Like, I'd rather not vote for Biden, but, like, if the alternative is worse, then I'll vote for the least bad option, you know? Because one of them is gonna win. Putting aside the fact that Sanders would have lost to Trump, a Supreme Court full of commies would be anything but sane. What commies, bro? Do you know how Supreme Court judges are supposed to be nominated? Like, Donald Trump is like one of the few people that's actually gone against the expectation of getting people into a position on the Supreme Court, given their, like, educational background and their time as a judge, with, like, Amy Coney Barrett, who's, like completely underprepared. And then you have Ketanji Brown Jackson, who is, like, the most overprepared Supreme Court justice in, like, our contemporary history, nominated by Joe Biden. And they say that she's, like, not equipped for the job only because she's black, but they can't say that outright. But, like, so many of Trump's picks were, like, so much less prepared for the job. So that being said, like, I don't know how many practicing, you know, judges there are that could be selected by a President Sanders that are also communists, but, like, it's a different reality this person's living in than the one that the rest of us normal people are, so. What are you talking about, dude? Literal nobodies, but it's good content, I guess. And that's coming from me, a nobody. Love ya, Ed, but I think Sanders would have had us on boxcars headed to the camps, assuming we weren't prepared to resist. For what? What would the charge be? Why would Sanders be doing that? First of all, and second of all, who's we? Literal, like, brain worms. The Donald Trump laser eye cum tribute PFP. Bernie was exposed as a sellout. Could have been a Ron Paul, but chose the dark side. Amazing, considering how the government targeted you. You'd want a larger government? Grow some common sense. Anybody talks about common sense to you, you should fucking bonk them with a stick, rhetorically speaking. You're a socialist now? Bernie Sanders isn't even a fucking socialist. God damn it, man. Thrown in the camps for refusing free healthcare. True. Love how most of these are just insults to Bernie Sanders rather than providing an actual argument. Yeah, but I mean, it's also Twitter, so that's fair enough. That's what it's for. Twitter is literally just like the messages scratched into the side of a bathroom stall in a public bathroom. That's what Twitter is and what it's meant to be. Anybody doing more than that is frankly wasting their time. So I think it's fair enough. Anyway. That was funny.